Hey guys, it's West here, back with another Summoners War video. Now, I know this is going to be redundant content because I know every content creator out there who makes anything that is remotely Summoners War makes videos on these updates and patches, but I just want to kind of give my little insight or my opinion on what some of the changes are and talk about each of them because it's more content for the channel. Oh boy. So, let's just hop right into it. So the Dark Dragon now, in addition to the damage he does with Decimate, prevents the enemy from being revived. I think that's cool. I think adding skills to those LD units that are just unimpressive. The Dark Dragon is definitely one of those units where it's like, oh, you didn't get the light one, kind of rip. Or, oh, that isn't Zeros Varad or Shemire, so kind of rip. So I guess it's nice to see that they're adding stuff to him. Does it make him more usable? Maybe. I know that there's a lot of Guild Wars teams that use passive revives or that that use, maybe Eladriel Perna compositions. Maybe you do Eladriel Perna and there's some other reviver like Eladriel Perna Amarna, but that really doesn't have a threat. What's Perna then? Eladriel Perna compositions that might be nice against because now the Dark Dragon can take those out and they can't be revived. I guess that's kind of cool. But does it make the unit insane? Not really. It's a nice added effect that makes the unit definitely more usable in my opinion. Let's hop onto the vampires. So the weaken effect, which is their second skill, in addition to everything it does currently, which is the attack break and defense break, I believe, the target won't be granted with beneficial effects for 2 turns with a 75% chance. Beneficial effect block for 2 turns? That's nice. I like that they're buffing some of these underused units overall in this patch. They're targeting units that are the weaker side of whatever family in order to make them stronger. Of course, this also affects the Dark Vampire, so that's cool. Cadis is getting better. But the Water and Wind one, I mean, does the Wind one become more usable in some places? I guess. I know some people use the Wind one for Giants. Some people who like to screw around with not max HP based damage based on the amount of harmful effects, have done some interesting daughter compositions and used the Wind Vampire as a means to increasing their damage output based on the dots. Man, people love mowing their lawn right now. But I think it's interesting. That could be useful. I think the Water one maybe gets okay because it has beneficial effect block, but it's not beneficial effect removal, so it doesn't really make sense in Dragons. I guess if it removed beneficial effects and then blocked, so they added Megan's skill onto it, it would be more useful. I don't think it's game breaking. I don't think it really makes a huge difference. I think it's like a bonus if you want to use those units, so maybe people play around with them in Guild Wars more. Now, the Neostone Fighters are ones that I'm really excited about because it makes some of the underused Neostone Fighters, or the very underwhelming ones, really interesting. So, Sharp Strike, you instantly gain another turn if the target's HP is 30% or lower after the attack. I really, really like this because on the Neostone Fighters, this is their second skill, for those of you who don't know, and the second skill, Defense Breaks. So, if that second skill hits really hard and maybe you have an attack buff from something else, and you really only need an attack buff with the Neostone Fighters, or with these specific, the Wind, Water, and Light, you could hit that second hit and it lands a defense break, but it lands it after the damage is done or at the same time as the damage is done, so you really don't take advantage of the defense break. But if you get them low enough, you get an additional turn and you get to take advantage of that. So I think it's cool because you're getting all these additional turn mechanics, kind of like the Water Neostone Fighter's third skill. You get an additional turn as well. I think it's fun. I think it makes them more fun for Guild Wars. It's not at all game breaking, but it's an interesting change that gives them additional turns, and that's kind of a reoccurring theme with this patch. Is after the nerfing of violent procs in things like RTA, and I'm not saying at all these units have huge viability in RTA, but since then I feel like they've been increasing additional turn mechanics in units because they're finally starting to understand that that's what's fun for people. The reason violent runes are fun is because you could violent proc a bunch of times and win, and having these additional turn chances on these units is going to make for some really interesting Guild Wars, I think. Next up, we have the Fire Polar Queen. I'm really excited about this change because this is a unit that I recently pulled. Brandy is a sick unit. The third skill is going down by 1 turn. Not too much to say other than the uptime on the skill is going to be it's going to be up more, which means that you're going to be doing more damage, which means if you use her in raid, you're going to be having even larger damage output. So I think this is going to affect people who use Brandy on raid. I think this is going to affect Rift Beasts. I don't think that this is going to affect PvP whatsoever, but I think it's going to be really, really awesome for people who use Brandia. I think it makes her maybe a little bit more viable than the Water Kung Fu Girl. So I think it's really fun, at least if you're just going for the most raw damage most consistently. So, I mean, not too much to say about that change, but I think it's really awesome. I like it. Next is the Fire Desert Queen, another unit that I have and a unit that I recently built. This change, I think, is amazing and makes her a lot better. Now, does it put her at the same level as her sisters? I don't know. Maybe. We'll probably see her at least tried out in RTA a little bit more around Conqueror ranks. Maybe in Guardian ranks with people of really, really good rune quality. Now, this is still a single target ability, but it's a strip and reset, but in addition to it, now it decreases the cooldown of the skill based on the number of harmful or the number of beneficial effects that you steal. So, for example, if they have a Wusa, you're decreasing the skill cooldown by 2 turns if you move after the Wusa and you strip the Will and Shield runes. The more beneficial effects they have, the more turns you're going to get taken off that 3rd skill if you manage to steal all of their beneficial effects. I think that's insane. I think it's really, really good. I think it makes her even better for Guild Wars. I think maybe people are going to be trying her out in RTA. I really like it. I'm excited for it. Does it make her broken? I don't know. It might. Somebody might find some really insane combination or might put her on a really, really fast violent set and just strip beneficial effects left and right. We'll see. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to play with the Fire Desert Queen more. Use her some in Guild Wars and sometimes for some really, really, really niche PvP instances in like Arena. But I'm really excited about this change. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Next, we have the Water Rakshasa, one of those units that is completely neglected. Attack is guaranteed to stun the target for 1 turn if the enemy is granted with a harmful effect. So they only need 1 harmful effect. That's what the change was. Guaranteed stun if they have 1 harmful effect rather than if they have 2. Meh. It doesn't really change anything for me. It doesn't make her more usable to me. I mean, it makes her stun more often, but it's a 1-turn stun and they have to have a harmful effect. So I feel like there's a lot of setup. Maybe if you use a Galleon and you have that defense break already there, then it's a stun. So you stop a Theo for a turn, but Theo violent procs through it. So it's a change. Next we have the Wind Rakshasa. Dancing Whip. Now, this goes back to that theme of additional turns that they're increasing. The Dancing Whip passive is every turn there's a 15% chance that you get to go again. So if it doesn't activate, it increases the chance by 15% chance. Yeah, so you get a 15% increased chance each turn that it doesn't activate. So every turn that it doesn't activate, it accumulates more or a higher percentage to activate the next turn, and then when it activates, it goes back to whatever the initial activation rate was. I think it's cool. I think it makes her proc more often, and people who enjoy messing around with fun units with some RNG aspects can play around with her in Guild Wars. I think that's fun. This update has a lot of changes that I think could just be fun. The Wind Ifrit got a really small, kind of notable, I guess, not really notable, effect change. If there's only 1 harmful effect on enemies, then it's an increase of 50%, whereas previously the increase was 30% per harmful effect. So you're doing 50% instead of 30%, I guess, if they only have 1 harmful effect on them. But that's, I mean, in most cases, if you're using the Wind Ifrit, you're going to have a bunch of harmful effects to really take advantage of that skill, or it's not going to matter. Next, the Light Horus passive. So before, it recovers the ally's attack bar with lowest attack bar 30% every turn and increases the ally's attack for 1 turn. Now it increases the ally's attack bar by 10% whenever your turn ends. So, I don't know. If allies have beneficial effects, additionally increases the attack bar based on the number of beneficial effects up to 20%. So, it kind of seems like a nerf. It kind of seems like they want there to be more stuff happening in order to really take advantage of this. So you're gonna have to build your team around it, or it's gonna take more than 1 turn to get a significant any significant benefit from it. I like it. I like when they're not really. It's not a huge nerf, but it's slowing him down by 1 turn. So you're not getting the full advantage the first turn unless you have beneficial effects, which I guess if you have your units on will, you can still take advantage of this as if it hadn't changed. Next, we have the changes to the Mystic Witches. Crow Summoning, so the continuous damage effect rating increased by 20%. I like it. Good for dungeon farming. I mean, does it affect anyone besides Megan? Not really, unless you use the other Mystic Witches. I think mostly for Megan this is going to be nice. Fire Mystic Witch, her spell removal, which is the cleanse. You get a recovery based on 5% recovery increase based on the number of harmful effects, so 5% per harmful effect. That's cool, I guess. It's a slightly better cleanse. We have the Light Mystic Witch, cast soul protection on an ally with the lowest HP and an ally with lowest max HP for lowest HP ratio and lowest max HP for 2 turns. If one ally has lowest and max, they'll be granted with soul protection for 2 turns. I mean, meh. I never really thought she was really that great to begin with. I guess, again, this is like they're trying to make more units usable because they want people to touch more units besides the typical meta units. I understand. Water Barb King Confiscate. Added effect, absorbs the attack bar by 50% if you attack an enemy with no beneficial effects. So Confiscate, you steal their beneficial effects. It's like chilling, except it's 1 hit. And you go and you slap them and steal their beneficial effects. And now it absorbs attack bar by 50% chance, with a 50% chance if they have no beneficial effects. I think this makes Water Barb King more fun. He's better. He makes him a little bit better for Guild Wars. I think he's nice in Dragons too with the attack bar. Absorption, he gets 50% attack bar when he brands with the 2nd skill anyways, so I think in Dragon's B10 he has maybe a little bit more usability. I think in Guild Wars he has overall more usability, because I guess if you go against a team assuming there's going to be a will unit or unit on will you want to strip and there's not, he's still good. He still does something that's relevant. Fire Barb King, Summary Conviction, before it strike the enemy with an axe, and if the target has less than 50% HP, it increases the damage. And when it's on cooldown, of course, you get speed and HP recovery. Now it strikes the enemy with an axe. This attack ignores all effects that resist death. Another unit that kills an enemy that doesn't want to die, I guess. I don't know how this is going to interact with Triana. I think maybe in 4-star RTA or maybe in some really annoying Guild War comps where there's Triana, or Guild Siege comps where there's Triana on defense, you can use this against Trianas, which could be pretty nice. That's where I see this to be really viable. I don't know how this affects Endure and if this is going to help you take down Theo, but if you bring this guy against Theo and you're not fast enough and you happen to glance Theo, then I mean, I don't think it matters anyways, but I think it'll be interesting to see how he works. I'm really glad they changed it, because honestly, to me, the Fire Barb King was the most underwhelming, and it was hardest for me to see any potential place to use him. And I really, really like the Barb Kings. I like the water one before the change. I use the wind one everywhere in the game. And I think the light and dark ones are nuts. So seeing this one being changed is really nice to see more usability in the Barb Kings, because I want to play around with more of them in like PvP content. Next, we have the Howls. So previously they increased their own attack bar by 30% with the first skill. Now they recover the HP of an ally with the lowest HP ratio by 15%. It's kind of like Rakuni. Fucking cocksucker, I'm gonna kill somebody. It's kind of like Rakuni, where he does his heal and cleanse every turn. The first skill, recovering HP, I think it's nice. I think it helps early game players who are using them to progress. Now, here we have the water one. Another change is it grants immunity on allies who had no harmful effects for 2 turns. So it's 2-turn immunity if they have no harmful effects. That's how I'm going to read this, because if I read it literally, then it says they get immunity if they haven't had harmful effects for 2 turns, but that doesn't make sense. So I'm assuming you get 2-turn immunity if they don't have harmful effects, which I think is really awesome, because later down we're going to see they actually changed the AI of the Water Howl as well, which for early game progression makes him even better. An immunity buff for early game, it's kind of sounding like they're hopping or they're taking some ideas from another game where there's a 2-star water unit that provides immunity and heals, but I'm not going to get into that. But I think it's really nice. I think they made him a lot better. 2-star monster that gives immunity, that's really relevant. A small aside, that's probably going to help my beginner progression series for 2018, as I think the Water Howl may have some raid uses now that it's a potential immunity buffer at a Nat 2 level. That's kind of crazy. Next is the Light Howl with the heal. After the skill is used, it grants immunity on allies with full HP for 2 turns. Again, another unit that grants immunity. They're trying to like give the more farmable people, or give the less pay to win people more options, I guess. Trying to give more units that have usability, more of the skills that were, I guess, unobtainable before. Because previously it's like, okay, if you don't have like Delphoy, or you don't have one of those, premium immunity buffers, then you're just not going to use immunity. And now there's like, I guess there's some options, which is cool. So the Beast Hunter is the first skill, the aim body skill. It previously aimed for the body shot blah blah blah, destroyed enemies max HP based on the damage dealt, 10% of the damage dealt. Now it is much more useful. It attacks an enemy to inflict damage that ignores all damage reduction effects. Why do I think this is more useful? Because HP destroy on a nat 3 unit that probably isn't going to do massive damage anyways is kind of awkward, because the unit isn't really doing enough damage to really justify the HP destruction. Like if you're using it against Pernas, whatever you're using against the Perna is going to get smacked anyways. Perna doesn't care what element it is. Perna's going to crit it. So having this attack that ignores damage reduction effects is probably going to be usable for some Guild Wars camps. So that's kind of cool, and it's on all the Beast Hunters, which is notable. So if you use any of the Beast Hunters already, I think this makes them better, unless you were using them for the niche purpose of taking down a Perna Eladriel comp, but I don't think you were, unless you're a crazy person who likes 20-minute Guild Wars. Next we have the Water, Wind, and Dark Beast Hunters, which have the second skill of Aim Head. So previously it shot the enemy with an attack that stuns them for 1 turn if you hit a crit, and it again destroys enemy max HP based on 15% of the damage dealt. Now it's defense break and recovery block, so I guess if you were using those units to attack Eladriel Perna comps before, you still have your HP recovery block, so I guess that's still relevant. You have a defense break for 2 turns. It doesn't indicate anything that has to do with a harmful effect rate, so if it's 100% harmful effect rate, I think it's nice. I think it makes these guys more usable for early game players that don't have the better units that do similar things at that level. I think it's interesting. It definitely makes them a lot more usable, in my opinion. Are they going to get used? I don't know. I guess it's up to you and up to the monsters that you have. Next, we have the Fire and Light one that have Aim Weak Spot, which is their second skill. Before it attacked the enemy and prevented them from using skills with cooldowns for 2 turns. So it was a silence for 2 turns. And now it is HP Disturb Recovery and leaves Branding Effect for 2 turns if they have higher max HP than yours. I'm a little bit sad, I guess, that they're getting rid of the silence, because I really liked the silence of the Fire one. I feel like that kind of worked with his kit pretty well. But it seems like they overall have just completely reworked them, so they're just going to be usable in different areas of the game, or in different situations than they were previously, it seems like. So it lands a brand if they have higher max HP than yours. You're probably going to build this guy as a nuker if you use him, so they're probably always going to have higher max HP than you, so it's HP block, or recovery block, and branding. I think it's cool. It does some stuff. Nat 3 with branding, that's pretty interesting. Next we have the Water Beast Hunter's passive. Increases the critical rate of 20% and decreases the chance of glancing by 20% previously. Now, it freezes the enemy for 1 turn if you attack an enemy under a harmful effect. If you're using the Beast Hunter, they're going to be under a harmful effect, probably, so the second attack, or if you have a defense breaker that goes before the Beast Hunter, you're already going to have a harmful effect, so it's a freeze. Again, nothing to indicate a harmful effect rate here, so if it's a 100% harmful effect rate, 100% freeze for 1 turn is not bad at all on passive, so I guess you could lock down a target, and as long as it doesn't violent proc out of it, it's pretty much locked down, which is kind of nice. So if there's a fire unit you don't want to deal with, if you think you can lock down a Perna with a Water Beast Hunter, I guess you can try any other fire units, pretty much any fire, light, dark, or water unit that you don't want to move. But I would assume mostly fire units is what you would bring this into. You just keep them frozen forever. Next we have the Fire Beast Hunter's passive. Previously it ignores the enemy's defense with a 15% chance when you attack, which led for some crazy RNG in some cases when you had some crazy rage runes on him. 5% chance in the next turn, so it increases the chance every single turn if the previous turn you didn't hit an ignore defense hit, so it constantly increased the chance of ignoring defense. Now it inflicts damage that ignores the enemy's defense with a 20% chance every attack, and the chance increases by 10% for every harmful effect up to 50%. So if you have 5 harmful effects on the enemy, you have a 70% chance of ignoring defense. That's a pretty good chance of ignoring defense. And I mean, slow, attack break, maybe you have a recovery block, defense break, and something else like a silence, and you go in and you 70% chance to ignore defense. That's kind of cool. You could still hit some huge damage with them. That's kind of nice. The Wind Beast Hunter increases his damage by 11%. More damage, not really a huge thing. They're net 3s, so having any sort of damage increase, I guess, makes them a little bit better, but it doesn't, I mean, it's not adding any more useful skills to them, so in my opinion, it's not huge in my books. Skill modification for the Light Beast Hunter. Previously attacked the enemy 3 times with arrows of light. Each arrow decreased the enemy's attack bar by 30%, increased yours. So it's an attack bar drain for 30% for 3 attacks, so potentially 90% attack bar drain. After it attacks the enemy 3 times, the faster your attack speed is compared to the enemy, the greater the damage you inflict. So it's based on attack speed of you to the attack speed of the enemy ratio. I don't know how that multiplier is going to work out, but I'm interested to see how much damage it's going to do, and I'm sure that having an attack speed slow on them and an attack speed buff on you is going to make a huge difference in terms of the damage output of that. I guess we'll see. Somebody will build it. And we'll see some crazy damage, I'm sure. Next, we have the Dark Beast Hunter, the Desperate Arrow ability. Previously, it used 10% of your HP to increase the critical rate to 100. Now it consumes half of your HP to inflict damage that ignores the enemy's defense. If your remaining HP is greater than 50%, the cooldown resets. This is the one that I was probably most excited about when it comes to like crazy potential RNG or crazy fun stuff that you can do. I'd put this guy on a vampire build and give him a crap ton of damage. It does damage that ignores defense. There's probably some a sweet spot of HP and damage that you give him where, you know, if you're doing 40k ignored defense damage and you only sacrifice whatever 7,500 HP in order to cast it, you're going to gain that 7,500 HP back. So you're probably going to want to find a, like, I guess I don't want to say bruiser, because I mean just enough HP where your ignored defense is pretty much gonna take you up to like 60% or 70% or whatever. Because if it consumes half your current HP and then you gain all your HP back, I mean you're set. So you could probably do a kind of Gyro thing where you make him really, really fast. You don't have to worry about Nemesis, of course, on him. Make him really, really fast and really high damage, and he can just constantly do that over and over again. I bet he could do some really stupid stuff in Guild War if you give him your best runes. I have one in my storage. I'm definitely going to be building one. I don't have a vampire set currently, but I'll find some sort of way to capitalize on this ability. I think it's really, really interesting, and I think this is going to be probably the most impactful Beast Hunter change. Next, we have 2 changes to the Light Fairy Queen. This affects people who've been around in the game for a long time and still use her. Now she weakens attack for 2 turns with a 20% chance with her Light Hurricane, which is her first skill that hits multiple times and has a chance to stun as well. And in addition, her third skill also, or her Fairy Blessing skill, also grants immunity on all allies for 2 turns. That's the heal skill. So she got better. Another monster that grants immunity. You can see they're giving a lot of monsters the ability to give immunity, because I guess they want earlier game players to have immunity. It's interesting. Next, it says skill errors were changed. Dark Panda's sequential attack. Apparently the damage increase wasn't applied. I didn't know anything about that. I haven't faced any Dark Pandas in a long time. Light Hard passive. Apparently passive effects were not activating properly in Secret Dungeon and the Tartarus Labyrinth. I think the Tartarus Labyrinth was probably the most relevant one, even though it's only the time limit stage. If you're using Light Hard as a primary buddy, you know, if you're using him for the buddy passive and you like are bringing a team that's using the mechanics of that Light Hard, which is kind of what you have to do, is you kind of have to bring units that synergize well with the Light Hard to really take full advantage of him. Then if it's not working in Tartarus Labyrinth, I'm sure it's really, really irritating, because your team probably revolves around those mechanics. Now, here's the big thing. The AI of 2 Howls were improved. Now, for anybody who's later in the game, or anybody who doesn't really mess around with lower level units, this probably won't affect you at all. But for earlier game players, the AI on the Water Howl was, it was an issue in my opinion. You know, I feel like the heal wasn't always doing what it was supposed to when it should have been. Now the Water Howl will use the third skill, which now grants immunity if the target has no harmful effects, regardless of the HP condition. So they'll be using it as a cleanse, much like, and it gives great examples here, much like you know, Chasun's Amuse as an attack buff, and Kaleem's Fiery Dance as an attack buff, and the Predator's Cry of the Water Werewolf as a like speed buff. So we get that. I think that's really interesting. It definitely makes the AI better, and it helps earlier game players. And then we have the light one as well with the heal, another ability that provides immunity. So we're seeing AI for immunity is getting better. Now, Water Howl might also have some usability in Dragon's B10 for a really, really early game, like seriously try-harding to be completely farmable. Dragon's B10 team, the Water Howl might be pretty good there too. With that immunity, you're blocking those harmful effects because immunity for 2 turns is really relevant. So I think that's pretty cool. Also, 2 more buffs, or 2 more changes, I should say, to the Light Fairy Queen. Now she gets an additional 10% speed tacked down to whatever it was before, like 13, 14, 15%. So she gets even more attack speed for all allies, which is, cool. Now, upon being awakened, she gains the leadership skill. Instead of gaining the leadership skill, she gets the leadership skill based on being unawakened. I take back what I said. So she gets the leadership skill before she's awakened. It doesn't increase her current leadership skill. I'm wrong. And when she's awakened, she gains the enhanced lightning skill. So that's it. Those are the changes. Now, the crazy ones, like I said, I'm really, really excited about the Fire Desert Queen changes. I think that's going to be fun. I think that the Water Howl changes are going to change beginner progression a little bit, and I think that the Dark Beast Hunter has potential to do some really stupid stuff. But that's it. This is my redundant monster balancing improvement video, because I know a lot of people make it, but I thought I might as well make it on my channel too, so I could capitalize on this opportunity to create great content. Thank you guys so much for enduring with me through this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, it's West again. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more.